Perfect.
Nadine, I mean, you're going to be teaching at an Ivy League school. You have a thriving practice as a sales trainer. What are you most proud of in your history?
Well, of course, I'm
Not
most
your
proud of.
children. I
Oh, I
know.
can't
I'm
say
very
that.
proud of your children too.
What am I most proud of? I would say perseverance and grit
Hmm.
overall,
Ooh, I
and
love
hanging in
that.
there through the good times and the bad. Starting to celebrate more of the good times, which of course in our community we're it's so easy not to focus and take a step back on your wins and your accomplishments. And so
Yeah,
we made that a real practice to do that. And Linda, my partner and I do that as well.
I love that. All right, let's start the show.
Hey, I'm Nadine
Great.
Keller, CEO of Precision Sales Coaching and Training, and you are tuned into the Ladies Power Lunch Show.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Grow Your Business Smarter, Live Your Optimal Life TV show. We were just talking in the background about unwieldy titles, and boy, is this ever one. But the truth is, it gets to the heart of what this show is about. Hi, if you've never watched our show before, if you've never met me before, I'm Dr. Davia H, and in addition to hosting this show, I also host a women's group called Ladies Power Lunch. Here's what we're all about, both in our group and on this show. We know that sometimes as women in business, it can be challenging. Am I right? Like, if you have ever had even one challenge while growing your business, just drop in the chat yes or me, because I know it can be rough. But here's the deal. The thing that you're struggling with, the thing that I'm struggling with, the thing that my special guest today is struggling with, guess what? There's somebody else out there who's already been there, who's done that, who's, as we like to say on the show, bought that t-shirt. And in our group, not only is she a person who has experience, but she's also willing to share her experience with the group so that we don't have to recreate wheels. We can actually open doors for each other and pass down keys to each other and support each other. Because when one woman in business thrives, we all win, we all succeed. And so that's what this show is about. But you might notice that the show's title is Grow Your Business Smarter, Live Your Optimal Life. Well, that optimal life piece is all about while we're climbing that ladder of success, whether it's in our small business or in our bigger business or in corporate, nonprofit, wherever we find ourselves, we're not neglecting to take care of ourselves. And so we've heard a lot about life balance and all of this, but it can be real. It's something that we can all aspire to. So on our show, we bring on members of our community in Ladies Power Lunch to share their gifts and their talents with you so that we can all grow and we can all thrive. And guess what? You can be a member of our amazing group because it's free to join. All you have to do is go to growsmarter.com/login, and there you can become a member of our outstanding, very, very collaborative, and also very robust community. So will you join us? Go to growsmarter.com/login. All right, enough about me. If you want more information about that, go to growsmarter.com/login. You can get that. But today's show is going to be outstanding. I say this all the time, and it's probably because they're kind of all outstanding, but I have been talking to Nadine about her coming on the show for quite a while now, and I'm so excited that we finally had an opportunity for our calendars to mesh so that I can have her here. She is outstanding when it comes to sales. And I was talking to somebody last week, one of our Ladies Power Lunch members, and she said, well, if you have a business and you're not making sales, you kind of don't have a business. And we've also been noticing, just from polling our Ladies Power Lunch members, we've been noticing that the things that have driven sales in the past, they're not necessarily the things that are driving sales for us now. It's changed a bit. And so there's an opportunity for us to bring in our sales superheroine, Nadine Keller, to share with us what should we be doing now as far as sales goes to make sure that 2025 is as abundant and as prosperous as we want it to be. So welcome, Nadine. Thank you so much for saying yes. I mean, I feel so honored, and I know you all are going to get a bit of an Ivy League education here today. So thank you, Nadine.
Thank you, Davia, for having me. I feel honored to be on the show.
So, Nadine, can you share with our audience a little bit about who you are? And I'd love if you tell us too a little bit about how you came to be a sales superheroine, helping others to learn about how to drive sales in their businesses.
Sure. So my story started really, I started my career at Chase Manhattan Bank, and I was lucky enough to be hired into an organization that was tasked with helping the investment bankers become commercial bankers, and they were using training to do that. And I had an opportunity to rub shoulders with the best of the best. And of course, it was a very technical curriculum, things like risk management and corporate finance, but they also had sales. And in those days, sales was a four-letter word in the banking environment. I'm not a salesperson, I'm a banker kind of thing. And as I was there for a little while, I became really interested in this topic and eventually became responsible for that curriculum. And so I did a lot of research looking in the financial services industry, but also outside in terms of what makes a great sales culture, selling skills, all of that. And so eventually there weren't a lot of people knocking down my door at the time. So it provided me an opportunity to do research and to study, but eventually they started to come on board. So that's where my kind of initiation to sales happened. And I left Chase. Actually, there were mergers and all of that. And my last position there was director of marketing for the global bank. And I was sleeping at the office. I had two little boys at home. And I thought, you know what? I think that there's a better way. So I decided to go off and start my own business. And I was an independent consultant for many years. I was a contractor to sales training firms like the Barron Group. All was good. And then I decided, you know what? I really want to scale a business. So 20 years ago, I started Precision Sales Coaching and Training. And you know what? It was a rocky road. There were ups and downs and all arounds. And I had good years and I had bad years. And in those days, Davia, there were not a lot of people like me helping people like me. So I had to figure it out the hard way and almost didn't make it many, many times. I eventually was able to scale it to seven figures. But then the pandemic hit. And like so many others, I had an opportunity to reflect. And when I really boiled down what I was doing in that business, is I was making very wealthy men wealthier. And I also unexpectedly lost my husband during that time. And I started to think about legacy. And I didn't want my legacy to be that, as much as I love the business, and the business is still thriving. But I wanted to help women like myself. So I called ironically, she was my first client for Precision 20 years ago. Her name is Linda Knox. She had founded Top of the Rock University for Prudential. I called her, I told her what I was doing, and she said, I am all in. So we interviewed over 100 women entrepreneurs before we developed our program.
I
We
was one.
Yes, you were. That's right. And we launched our program about 3 years ago, and we are incredibly proud of the progress that the women in our community have made. And it just feels so aligned with our purpose.
Beautiful. I love the trajectory that your life has taken and your business has taken, and how you have shown resilience in all the areas that you have gone through. And I feel like that's a big thing for women in business. How do you think resilience factors in when it comes to being successful and thriving and being prosperous in our businesses?
I think it is pretty on top of it being one of the most important things. And I love the word, one of my favorite words is grit. So it is, perseverance and determination in the face of when everything is not going well.
Yes.
So I think that, mindset is so important for women. Linda and I often say that we do as much unlearning in our program as we do learning. We have a lot of women coming out of corporate. And we've had to do some things in corporate that men have not to prove ourselves. And so as a result, just to give one example, perfectionism, right? Women tend to be much more perfectionist than men do. And I think part of that is because we've had to try harder. We feel like we need to get everything perfect. And perfectionism is really an enemy of entrepreneurship. So we got to keep that in check. Another example would certainly be imposter syndrome, right?
Mhm.
So we, tend to doubt ourselves quite a bit. Ironically, the research tells us that the more successful women are the ones who suffer from imposter syndrome the most. And in fact, Michelle Obama, Oprah Winfrey have both talked about imposter syndrome. So this idea of, resilience, entrepreneurship, you're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days, you're going to have good moments, you're going to have bad moments. It's about leaning into the good moments and learning from those things that didn't go quite your way.
So true. I always say that there's always learning. There's always something to learn. There's always an
Always.
opportunity to learn. And, sometimes things don't go the way you want them to, but did you learn the lesson though?
Yes.
Did
Yes.
you get it?
There's something else that I think is really interesting that's related to that, and that is, as I've gotten older, I see this more and more, and that is in any negative situation, when things
Mhm.
don't go your way, whether it's a little thing not going your way or a really big thing not going your way, there is always opportunity if you look for it, always. So even for example, I mentioned, my husband passing away, like that, that's big. That was a big, sad, horrible event. However, I would say that I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today if he were still alive. So there is, it's just in fact, another thing, my sons and I wrote a book after he passed away, which was an incredible experience for us. So that's a big thing, but sometimes there are the little things. It might be losing a deal that you were really excited about. Or not being accepted into a TED talk that you wanted to do, something like that. And I just believe as I get older, that I really do believe that everything happens for a reason and usually ends up to benefit you. So I'm always, when something doesn't go my way, I'm like, oh, I can't wait to see what better is coming down the road for me.
Yeah, and I approach that everything happens for a reason this way. I approach it from the point of view of, are you taking the lesson from it? It's here to teach you something. Are
Yes,
you taking the lesson?
definitely.
Because if you don't take the lesson, then you
It
miss
was
the opportunity.
exactly, yes.
So I am right on board with that. So let's circle back to this whole idea of sales, because from what I'm hearing, ears to the ground with our amazing women and ladies power lunch group, what the sort of feedback I'm getting is that, what used to work for us for sales, what used to get that cash register ringing, doesn't seem to be working exactly the same anymore. What has your experience been, Nadine? Are you hearing that too from the folks that you talk to?
So it's not so much a change in, yeah, well, yes. So I think people don't want to be sold to, but they never have wanted to be sold to. I think they've tolerated it more. The other thing is the buyer is much more educated than they have been in the past, thanks to the internet, right? We can do a lot of research before we decide to hire someone, for example. So that has very much changed, no doubt about it. What was really interesting is that women, and we talk about this a lot, is that we have really kind of been forced to operate in masculine models. And it's no wonder, right? I mean, it was the men, there weren't women in business, right? 100 years ago. So all of those models that we've been operating in are very masculine. The thing about the sales model that is great news for any woman listening is that when we lean into our feminine energy of things like collaboration and empathy, we are more successful in the sales process. And it's about being in service of the person that you're talking to, as opposed to trying to sell them. When we did our research with the 100 people, we heard we heard time and time again that they have a real disdain for selling and a real fear of selling, feeling that they need to be salesy and pushy. And in fact, we have one woman in our program, Sue, who is amazing. And Sue is one of those who just, please don't make me sell, don't make me sell, don't make me sell. And so when she made that shift, everything changed for her. First of all, it makes whoever you're talking to a lot more comfortable. You're more comfortable. Sue went so far as getting a pillow made for her office that says selling is serving, as a reminder to her all the time. And when we're in service of people, everybody's happier, right?
Mhm.
And um what was I going to say? Yeah, and you're not everybody's happier, but what was I going to say? I don't know. Anyway, I know. I was going to say it is not a passive process, however. And so I don't want to get that confused we call it the softer side of sales. And this is why it's not passive. You are in service, but when you find an ideal client who you absolutely know you can help and needs your services, you have an obligation to help them overcome any obstacles in the way. But they are coming over their own obstacles as opposed to us. There's the old model in selling, which is, overcome objections. And, it's really helping them overcome their own objections.
I like that a lot. I ask this question of almost all our guests, If you had the opportunity, Nadine, to just wrap your arms around us here at Ladies Power Lunch and share with us this one thing that you see that we're all doing wrong or we could all do better when it comes to sales in our businesses, what would that one thing be?
So it would be sales strategy. And what I mean by sales strategy, so we have a lot of women come to us who have reached a plateau in their business. They've been out for a while, they've been very dependent on their network and referrals for business, but then it seems to stop and they don't know why.
Mhm,
Always, the reason they run into the plateau is because of sales strategy. And what I mean by that is there are several pieces to it. Number one, and by far the hardest, is niching. And the reason why niching is so hard is that it's very counterintuitive. It feels like we're cutting ourselves off from opportunity, when in fact, what we're doing is we're positioning ourselves for growth. And it can be a muddy process, niching, trying to figure out who you're going to serve, what is the transformation that they are looking for, and how
mhm,
you are going to deliver that. So
mhm,
that's the niche piece. Then you've got to get your offer and your pricing right. And so the offer has to do two things. One is it has to be big enough, expansive enough to get your ideal client to the transformation that they desire. One thing that we have come across a number of times with women entrepreneurs is because they're afraid of pricing, putting a big ticket on it, they shorten the time that is necessary to help a client get to the transformation. And so that kind of gets into trouble. Speaking of pricing, we know that women underprice themselves by 28% compared to their male counterparts, offering
mhm.
the exact same service. Like, think about that, 28%. And then we have messaging. And we like to refer to messaging as magnetic messaging. And this is where the niche piece comes in, is that it allows you to know your ideal client so well that you can speak their language. And whenever they interact with you or your website, their reaction is, oh my gosh, she really gets me, right? And that makes the sale so much easier because you're attracting the people that you have specifically decided that you can help. And then finally is a lead gen strategy. So there's a lot of activity. We see a lot of activity on lead gen. We see a lot of frustration on lead gen, right? Women who are posting and, commenting on Facebook and maybe starting a podcast or and not getting the traction. And so there are two pieces when we think about lead generation. One is it has to be authentic to who you are. So I always say, you will never see me dancing on TikTok, right? That's my example. But you will see me doing webinars and speaking engagements and all that because that's aligned with who I am. The second piece of it is there are short
Oh,
game.
maybe I could see you do some ballroom dancing on TikTok.
Oh, I don't think, not in this lifetime. My next life, maybe. But the second thing is there are short game activities and there are the long game activities.
Mhm,
And what we want to be doing is focused on the short game activities early in our business. That's not to say that you're not doing some of the long game. So a long game, for example, might be a podcast, right? It might take a while for you to get an audience where it begins to generate leads for you. A short game activity is networking because it allows you to develop very quickly that know, like, and trust and
mhm.
convert easily. So when you ask me what's the number one thing, it is, there's no one thing, but it is the foundation on which your business is built. If you've got that strong foundation, sales is easy. Sales is easy. It's when you don't know where your leads are coming from, when you're kind of in a whirl about, posting and activity that is not strategic, when you haven't priced your offer right, when the offer is not expansive enough, when you don't know your ideal client inside and out, that's where sales gets tough.
So I think maybe this is a question that I should have asked earlier on, because I think maybe some of our audience members might be a little confused as to what is sales and what is marketing.
Mm.
What's the difference? How do they connect to each other? What's the sweet spot?
Yes. So I always think of marketing as when you are speaking to a large group, a large market, right? So my market was women entrepreneurs and service-based businesses. Now, because of the research that we did, we have a really good handle on kind of our ideal client, the problems that they're facing, how to talk to them and where to find them. Uh, Um, but you're limited, right? Because you're talking to a mass group. Sales is when you are able to take what I would call the marketplace story and customize it to an individual, or if you're B2B, a specific situation, right? Where now you're in a really powerful position because you can learn what their specific challenges are and specifically address how you can help them. So that's how I define marketing and sales. And of course, marketing helps you to get the leads so that you can have the sales conversations and convert those conversations into clients.
We tend to, like you said earlier, we don't like being sold to. And we all have this memory, perhaps, of somebody who has sold to us and done so in a way that has been uncomfortable, maybe sleazy.
Yes.
And it might have prevented us from even wanting to have conversations about sales. How do you get past that?
So you really get past it in terms of shifting the paradigm, right? So stop thinking about sales and start thinking about service. Any woman, for example, that I talk to who is a potential ideal client for us, I am thinking all the time, and I start with the intention, Davia. I honestly do this before every sales conversation I have.
Mhm.
I make the intention of I really want to help whoever I'm meeting today on the other side, right? And so, of course, the skill of sales is questioning and listening. And I always say listening with the intent to learn. So that positions you when you can ask the right questions, create a climate where the person on the other end is comfortable with you. So they're sharing their situation with you. You're learning, learning, learning. Then we are in a great position to serve. And it may be that this individual is not your ideal client after all, or they may, for example, might not be ready for the solution that you're offering, that kind of thing. But Linda and I always say that we look to add value in every conversation that we have.
Look to add value in every conversation that you have. I love that so much. I think that's the key. That's the gold right there.
Exactly. And once you do that, it's like, it's so fun. And this is what our clients say in the program, like Sue, who, was really uptight about selling, is it's like, she loves it now because it's everybody wants to help everybody, and particularly those who are coaches and consultants. You're in
Mhm.
this business because you have a natural inclination to help people and have an impact greater than yourselves. So it becomes like, I love selling because it's not selling, it's serving, and I get to help people.
How can we get to the point where we're like you, Nadine, and we actually love selling?
I think that you have to, like Sue did with the pillow, right? Selling is serving. You have to just continue to remind yourself before every sales conversation. Again, have that intent, set that intent. And there's something that is really hard to do, Davia, and that is you've got to detach from the outcome. Right. And that requires, I don't know if it's discipline or practice, but you go into a conversation and it's not about how am I going to sell this person? It's how am I going to serve this person? And if they happen to be an ideal client, yes, right. Then I can
Mhm.
bring them in the program and help them. If not, hopefully, as I said earlier, I've added some value along the way.
Yeah, I love that. So as we are leaning into this new year, what advice do you have for us for making 2025 and beyond as robust sales-wise as we can? How can we really ramp things up?
So there's a couple of things. One is obviously we're in the season of goal setting or a little past the season of goal setting. But one thing that I say to all entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs that I have a conversation with is we don't like to see a revenue goal any less than 250,000. And there may be some out there in your audience saying, "Oh my God, 250," because we hear a lot of I want to get to six figures. Well, guess what? Six figures is a heavy and hard place to be, like under 200, right? Because you're doing it all yourself. You're unable to invest in your business. So the first thing I would say to you, if you have a goal under $200,000, take a step back and just ask yourself, what would it take for me to get to 200? Now, our mission is to get 5,000 women to 500,000 in revenue and above. And there are a lot of women, way above that, but I guess the first thing that I would say is make sure that your goals are big enough to get you to a place of balance and financial freedom in your life. so that you're not working around the clock, that you're able to spend time with your family, that kind of thing. So that's number one. Number two would be, again, the importance of the niching and understanding your clients inside and out. And I think, once you have that revenue goal, to do some reverse engineering, and we have actually a revenue calculator that I'd be happy to send to anybody, that allows you to reverse engineer. So let's say that right now you are less than 100,000 and you've made a goal of 250,000. How do you get there? Well, you can get there. There are a couple of paths. The first thing I would do is check your pricing, because remember, 28%. Can you imagine if you were just able to get an increase of 28% just by changing your pricing model so it's consistent with your male counterparts? I mean, that's huge in and of itself. The second is that the more leads you have, the more likely that you're going to get to that revenue goal. So it's another lever, is to say, I need more leads. If you have more leads and you convert the same number of leads as you always have, you're going to have an impact on your revenue. And then the third thing is, of course, the conversion rates. So if you are able to close more sales, then of course that's going to impact your revenue as well. The combination of the three of those things is where you can really make a huge leap. But again, your audience may be thinking, oh, close more sales. Well, and she just was talking about detachment and close more sales. How do I do that? Well, we go back to that foundation again. It's going to be a lot easier for you to close more sales if you know exactly who your ideal client is, if you're speaking their language, if you've developed an offer specific to them. Your close ratios, the number of closes you have per sales conversation, is going to go up dramatically.
Yeah, knowing exactly who would benefit the most from what you have to offer is really life-changing.
Yes, it is.
So I like to think of our show as a practical resource for women in business. And so you've shared a lot of really great tips. What about some do's and don'ts? What should we be doing? What should we be absolutely avoiding doing?
Well, one very practical thing that seems so obvious, but we often don't do it, is take a step back and say, what is working for me and what is not working for me? And
Mm.
lean into what is working for you. So that's a do. Clearly, a do is to have a lead gen strategy, right? Not just be in a whirl of activity, but a specific strategy. And if anybody wants help with that, we have a free template that we're happy to share. What else to do? Have a mindset practice. So we talked about the ups and downs of entrepreneurship. It's important to celebrate your wins, and we're not wired to do that. Our brain is wired to focus on the negative and not the positive, and you get a lot of momentum from that. And I think very much attached to that is community. Women entrepreneurs need community, and it's so great that you are providing that, Davia. But it is, we need to support each other. We need to help others with what we've learned, and cheer each other on to success. Hugely powerful.
I love all of those. I really, really do. So, in the idea of all of this being practical, may I invite you to give us a starting point? Give us a little bit of homework. Give us something that we can tap into over this next week to get our sales kickstarted for the new year.
I would recommend that if you know who your niche is, and you know who or even if you think you know what your niche is, I would conduct some research interviews. And I talked about, Linda and me interviewing over 100 women entrepreneurs. We don't ask, we do, it's very much a part of our program, is we have our clients interview 30 of their ideal clients. The insight that comes from that is just remarkable. And again, it makes everything easier if you understand who your ideal client is, how they described the problems that they're facing, how they described the transformation that they're seeking, what they're willing to pay for it, what their ideal solution looks like. So I would just, even if you think you know them, because you have to, Linda and I still do interviews. You have to keep, especially in this world where the pace of change is so significant.
That's it. That's it right there. I think this homework is what is going to make the difference for us this year because, like you said, life is moving at pace. And what might have been really, really important for your ideal client last year, it might not be exactly the same this year.
Exactly. In fact, yesterday, I had a sales call, and the woman is coming into the program, and she is amazing background. She's got her doctorate in she is ghost written, I don't know how many hundreds of books, and she focuses on business books in particular. And she
Mhm,
had 23 was a pretty good year, 24 was terrible.
mhm.
And her inclination was just to work harder doing the same thing. But when you think about the world of publishing, for example, it's an entirely different world today than it was in 2023. You have AI that's come on like nobody's business, just as one example there. So I was suggesting to her that this is a great opportunity for her to revisit her ideal client, her niche, her offer, and get ahead of the curve. Look around the corner at what's to come.
I love that. I love that so much. So, folks, here's the homework. I invite you to go look at your clients. And if you can, pick out 30 or as close to that number as you can. Am I on track so far with this
Yeah,
homework?
so it doesn't, I think it's great to interview existing and past clients, but what you really want to do is try and find your ideal clients. And so the best place to start there, Davia, is with a client when you look back and you say, she was my ideal client.
Mhm.
Interview her, but then ask her to refer one or two people who's similar in profile to her. So you want to get to the point where you're interviewing people that you have not met before.
I like this.
Yes, and so eWomen's Network, great resource for that. You know, your network, great resource for that as well. So you want to, and you're going to kiss some frogs at the beginning, but then you'll get closer and closer to your ideal client, and that's where the magic happens. And some of them may end up, and I will say, you never want to turn a research interview into a sales call because it's inauthentic. But
Mhm.
there may be an opportunity to say at the end, you seem like exactly the client that I'm developing my offer for. Is it okay if I circle back to you in a few weeks to tell you about it? Or they may ask you to do that.
And they might ask because if they know what you do and they think that what you do might be a good fit, they might ask to hear some more.
That happens frequently. In fact, Linda, our first clients came from our research interviews, when we set up sales calls after.
I feel like this is probably the best homework that we've gotten all year long, keeping in
Oh,
mind that we're at week 4 of the year, so we're not that far in, but this is really, really great stuff. I love it.
good. Good, good.
Any any final words, Nadine? Anything that you may have wanted to share with us, but the questions didn't lead in that direction?
I don't think so, other than I'll kind of reinforce that your ability to scale your business is the good news is it can be a very simple process. Um, but it's not, there are kind of two sides to this. One is that we've seen a lot of women who kind of beat themselves up about their business not growing as fast as they could. And we always say, like, nobody's born with this. There is a methodical process to growing your business. And, if you're coming out of corporate or, we have some people who have been consultants for a long time or whatever, it's like there's a know-how, right? And a skill set associated with that. So that's one thing I would say. Um, but the other is that everything is connected with everything else. So it's actually a pretty simple framework. We went through the foundation, then you've got the sales skills, and then you've got sales growth. But everything is connected. And so I think looking at it from a holistic perspective can be helpful. Instead of saying, oh, I need to get better at sales, it's lead gen in sales. It may be messaging lead gen in sales. It may be understanding my ideal client in sales. So it's everything is kind of interdependent on each other. And once you get that strong foundation down, you can really position yourself for growth.
I like that you say that because very many of us who have come from a more corporate situation or come from wherever we've come from, I would say a big percentage of us do not have a degree in business. We are good at the thing that we do. So, for
Right.
example, for me, I'm really good when it comes to patient care. I'm really good there.
I
When
bet
it
you.
comes to running a business, I learned a lot in corporate as a leader, but I wouldn't say I got the entire skill set of building a business.
And think of it. I mean, corporate is an entirely different business
It is.
than an entrepreneur
It is.
business or a service-based business.
Com-
Entirely different.
completely.
And you don't have the resources that you do in corporate,
You do not.
right? And you're doing it all yourself at the beginning.
So true. So
Mhm.
true. So true. There was a Staples commercial that I remember where the guy came in and he was changing the copier and he was emptying the trash bin and he was talking to the clients and he was doing the spreadsheets and he was just doing all the things.
Yes.
And I know when they made that commercial that a lot of small business owners and entrepreneurs really leaned into that because they could see themselves
They
in
could
that way.
relate to it, absolutely. When we in our interviews, I don't know how many times I heard, "I feel like a hamster on a wheel."
Hmm.
And this feeling of kind of being frazzled, and that's why it's important to set those revenue goals high. And even if you don't make it, right? Your chances are you're gonna end up better at the end of the year with a higher goal than a smaller goal with the idea of shoot for the moon and you'll get to the sky. But the idea is you want to get to a place where you're not doing it all yourself, that you have balance and joy in your work.
And so you can, while you're growing your business smarter, still live your optimal life.
Yes.
So Nadine, folks are watching along, getting a lot of hearts and likes over here in our Ladies Power Lunch Facebook community. We have our folks over in Win Win Women watching along on Apple TV and Roku TV and Fire TV. Want to say hi to all of them too. We have folks who are listening along either on our podcast or on YouTube. They're wondering, they're saying, this woman, she knows about sales and we want to connect with her. How can they connect with you?
So we have a couple of things. So first of all, we have a lot of free resources. So we would encourage you. We just launched a YouTube channel, which is the Nadine Keller. Believe it or not, there's other Nadine Kellers out there. So it's the Nadine Keller. We have an Instagram account that is also that same handle. And we're launching a new website. The old website was basically a landing page on the institutional side of the business. Now we have this brand new website that's coming out that should be out next week. We're launching, and that'll have a ton of stuff on it. And that is www.theprecision or is it precisionsalesaccelerator.com. But the real thing is if you follow YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, we also have the softer side of sales newsletter that you can subscribe to on LinkedIn. That's a monthly newsletter. And again, we've got a ton. Our mission is to support women entrepreneurs, whether they are our clients or not. So we have lots and lots of free information. You can email me at nkeller@precisionsalescoaching.com too.
Beautiful. And of course, shameless plug for Ladies Power Lunch. Nadine is a member of our Ladies Power Lunch community. So if you pop into Ladies Power Lunch and say, hey, I want to connect with Nadine, guess what? You're going to
Yes.
find her there as well. And to do that, you can go to growsmarter.com/login. And that's how you get to be a part of our free community, take part in our free resources, and even be an attendee or a presenter if you have something to share that is something that you can share with our audience at our monthly meetings, which we have on the third Tuesday of every month. Nadine, at the end of every show, I like to pull a card. I have all these cards, and I like to pull a card and kind of get an idea or thought for the week, something to think about as we move into the rest of our week. So today, since we're talking about sales and money and abundance and prosperity, I thought I'd pull from Tosha Silver's deck, and it's called Divine Abundance. And
Nice.
they're very simple, and I usually post the card if the card has any additional reading or anything like that. I always post it in the Ladies Power Lunch Facebook group, which you can access at groupsmarter.com/login. So let me pull today's card and see what we should be thinking about. So this card says intuition, and the little text at the bottom says each person's road to the inner Lord is extraordinary and personal. How liberating to listen inside and sense moment to moment what is needed. Intuition.
I love that.
How is this? How do you feel like this is tying into the conversation
Oh,
that we've been having about sales?
yes. So, well, first of all, I, have so many conversations with women. And one of the things that concerns me, I might say, I don't know, concern might be a little bit strong, is when we make decisions based out of fear. And one of the things that we as women have very strong intuitions. And so I always encourage whether, sometimes this is in a sales conversation where, someone is thinking about joining our program and there is fear and fear comes in, there's fear of failure, there is fear of success, and there is fear of sustaining the success. And so those are often kind of roadblocks. And I think one of the best ways to conquer fear and make sure that you want to make logical decisions, but we also want to really tune into our intuition. When we have a decision to make, a business decision to make, is to really go inside and listen to what your intuition is telling you and make sure that you're not making decisions out of fear.
Yes,
Because, of course, fear is where growth happens, right? When you're able to step into your fear or your uncomfort zone, that's where you grow. So that's a good thing. But you need to balance it. And one of the best ways we can do that is by listening to our intuition.
I love that. That's wonderful. I think this was indeed the perfect card to choose because I think as women in business, we often listen to everybody else. And I know we're as humans wired to really tune into the negative a little bit more than the positive sometimes. And sometimes we can have those negative tapes playing in our heads. And instead of listening to what we know to be true about ourselves and our businesses, we might take another path. And all paths are valid because, there's always something to learn, but maybe there's room for tuning into our intuition a little bit more as we go into this new year and just seeing where that path leads us. I have enjoyed this conversation immensely, Nadine, and I'm looking forward to having you come back, especially for one of those monthly meetings where we have those panel conversations where we can get some really robust discussion going. Thank you so much for
It
being
has
a
been
part of this
my
today.
pleasure, Davia. Obviously, I love the topic, so I could talk about it all day long and talk with you. You do such a great job facilitating the conversation. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thanks for watching along, listening along, however it is that you're connecting with us. Please continue to do so. Share it with a friend, like, subscribe, leave us a comment. All of these things don't really mean that much to you. It probably takes you a second, but it is everything to us. Thank you so much for joining in today, everybody. And I'll see you all on the next show. Bye, everyone.